नोशनल वैल्यू होता है और उस पे जितना भी रियलाइज्ड गेन होता है, realized gain shows up, realized gain and realized losses shows up on the income statement.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just recalling in our financial reporting, we did some derivative accounting, and maybe I'll double check. I was recalling that, it was showing as an asset. Maybe I might be wrong. I'll double check that.
What was the answer? Can you repeat what
No,
you just said?
yeah, no, I was saying that in our financial reporting, there was this derivative accounting. If I am recalling, that probably it was shown as an asset, but I will double check, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
Even I am trying to recall here. Derivative position, see, जो notional value है वो तो definitely off balance sheet है, because it is not the real transaction or a real asset or liability. Agar if you are long on dollars, it must be either in it wouldn't be you wouldn't have it right now. You would have it 3 months from now or whatever time period is. It's always cash settled, more often than not it's cash settled. So profit and losses जो realize होते हैं वो तो income statement में जाते हैं. Notional value of derivative is disclosed in the balance sheet. All I'm thinking is कि unrealized gain, unrealized losses को हम income statement में record करते हैं या वो asset की तरह, trading assets की तरह showcase होते हैं. Trading assets definitely होते तो हैं.
So, I mean, I'm just referring to
हाँ,
one
I
of the
believe जो
deck.
unrealized gain है वो यही shows है. बोलो.
Yeah, no, I was just referring to one of the slides of financial reporting where it talks about rules of accounting derivatives. And it says, it depends on, whether it's for speculation or hedging. And derivatives are recorded at fair value. And they are conducted, as you were saying, at the end of year end or the contract period, whatever the contract period of the derivative is. So, I mean, probably it is shown on the balance sheet. If the derivative is speculative, then any resulting profits or loss is promptly recognized in the P&L. If it is non-speculative, the loss and gain is transferred to a comprehensive income account. I don't know, I don't think it talks about anything on the balance sheet part. That's all I had. Yeah.
So, okay, so they need to classify whether it's for hedging or not, or for speculative.
Yes. So it says that initially derivatives are recorded at fair value. So I'm assuming that, they're taking it as a, whatever,
Balance sheet asset.
Yeah.
It's not possible. मतलब, say अगर interest rate swaps है, वो अब $1 million पे कोई notional principal है, उस पे interest rate exchange हो रहा है, तो मैं ये $1 million principal तो कभी भी balance sheet में नहीं दिखा सकती, because actual loan तो नहीं लिया ना किसी ने मेरे से $1 million का. It is just the interest rate being exchanged. मतलब थोड़ा सा gray area है.
True.
तो
No, I agree. Derivative is a huge space. So each instrument is very different from another.
Yes, correct. So there cannot be one thumb rule guiding all kind of instruments out there. तो but what I know is कि देखो future option की बात करें, swaps तो definitely notional value सारी off balance sheet जाएगी, जो भी उस पे transaction है, cash settlement, cash transaction है, वो आपके income statement और cash में अपने आप reflect करेगा. When I talk about futures and options, it is also like leveraged position होती है futures में भी. You pay margin and you have a position on an asset, but you do not have an asset, and you're never going to have that asset. Any which ways, let's just close
Sure.
this discussion
Sure.
on as per my understanding, probably that unrealized gain and unrealized part of unrealized gain and losses are shown as trading asset and trading liabilities, like within trading asset and trading liabilities, while whatever has been realized over the positions have been liquidated, that will of course get into the income statement.
Sure.
जो
Okay.
पोजीशन ही क्लोज हो गई उसका तो कुछ है ही नहीं, जो
Obviously.
पोजीशन क्लोज नहीं हुई उसका पेयर वैल्यू, सही बात है, वैसे तो जो पोजीशन क्लोज नहीं हुई उसकी वैल्यू तो वही होगी ना जो उसके पे पे ऑफ होगा,
Right.
तो ठीक है. सो फेयर वैल्यूज वुड बी द ट्रेडिंग एसेट्स ट्रेडिंग लायबिलिटीज, जो पोजीशन क्लोज हो गई वो तो रियलाइज ही हो गए. डन. सो वी हैव on the asset side loans, investments, cash. On the liability side we have liability and equity side we have
Deposits as well as any debt that the bank has taken.
right. So the
Long
first
term,
one would be shareholders funds, within
right.
which we'll have certain reserves also. We'll have
Yes.
general reserve, capital reserve, revaluation reserve, investment fluctuation reserve. There were many kind of reserves that we did talk about. So all those reserves where profits are appropriated, distributed, everything reflects under shareholders funds. Then we have liabilities. उसके बाद preference share capital भी हो सकता है. Preference share capital में भी redeemable non-cumulative preference share capital हो सकता है, non-redeemable non-cumulative preference share हो सकता है, या redeemable cumulative preference share capital हो सकता है. Any kind of preference share capital a bank can go on issuing and raise funds on. Then we'll have subordinated debt. Do we remember this?
Yeah.
So subordinated
81,
debt,
81,
in some
81
cases
bonds.
81 bonds. Then short-term borrowings, long-term borrowings, deposits. Deposits may be again CASA deposits, fixed term deposits, all of that comes under equity and liability. Coming to the income statement, how does the income statement of a bank looks like? We have interest income, then we have other income. Other income में क्या cover होता है?
Fees, services, fees, whatever fee they would be collecting for their services.
Fee income. Anything else? Income on trading assets.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Income on investments, income on trading assets. Let's club them together. Yeah, more or less यही होता है. Income on sale of any fixed asset or anything of that sort, everything comes under other income. Interest earned on the loans advanced, on the bonds held, on the RBI reserves lent under repurchase agreement or otherwise will all come under interest earned. So ये I interest income हो गया, other income हो गया, ये इस दोनों को ऐड करते हैं तो बनता है ग्रॉस इनकम, टोटल इनकम, एक ही बात है.
Right.
This is a contemporary to revenue on a company's income statement. Gross income for a bank is like a revenue to a company. ठीक है? Then comes expenditure. Of course, one major expenditure that a bank incurs is interest expense. Then operating expenses. Operating expenses would be very general administration expenses. Then all the provisions for income tax, provisions for non-performing assets, provisions for non-standard assets, loan loss reserves, any name can be given to them. So provisions are always a charge against profit. ये profit calculate करने से पहले as expense charge हो रहा है. So any addition to provision, या तो कोई नया provision बन रहा है या फिर addition to an existing provision will come here. Then, of course, income minus expense will be profit, net income, and then appropriations. This is how a P&L account looks like. Earning per share. Analyzing banks' financials. So we did ROE framework, return on equity framework, 2-point
Analysis, yeah.
analysis, ROE decomposition. So how does return on equity computed from a bank's income statement?
So, we take that profitability ratio and asset turnover ratio and the equity multiplier.
No. A general formula for
okay.
return on equity.
Okay, right. So this is the net income upon total share capital.
Book value of equity, right? Value of
right.
equity capital infused. So जो भी shareholders funds के head के सामने amount है वो आता है ROE, right? So this can further be written as a multiplicity of what you were saying, which is net profit margin into asset turnover ratio or asset utilization, asset yield, कुछ भी बोल सकते हैं, into equity multiplier. Net profit margin is computed as
profit margin on net sales.
Net profit margin will be net income upon
net
gross
sales
income.
Or revenues, yeah.
Revenues, which is gross income in our case. So it talks about how good is the bank at managing its cost, right? So जितना ज़्यादा profit margin होगा उतना better वो cost optimize कर रहे हैं, cost minimize कर रहे हैं और returns optimize कर रहे हैं. Net profit margin, and then we have asset utilization, asset yield calculated as
sales upon total assets.
gross income upon average total assets. Given the asset size, वो कितना income generate कर पा रहे हैं. So given this balance sheet size or given the total resources invested in the bank, how much income are they able to generate? So how efficiently they're utilizing their resources, how efficiently they're investing into assets. Equity multiplier would be average total assets upon guys, where is everybody? कौन जगह है यहाँ पे? Give me a raised hand. Bhavna is here. Aarti is here.
Yeah, I'm there, yeah.
You to definitely are here. Prashit is here. इधर हो तो बोलो ना. Equity multiplier ये तो
total
ROE
assets
तो
upon equity shareholder. The book value of the share capital.
Book value of equity. Right. So equity multiplier बताता क्या है that how much of asset is financed by equity and rest of it is financed by debt. So if EM is 9, it means that 1/9 of the asset size is financed from equity and rest of it is by debt. And usually for a bank, equity multiplier is really high because a lot of the money or financing of asset comes from the debt part of it.
Right.
Right. So when we conduct a DuPont analysis, before I move to the other slide, NIM कैसे calculate करते हैं? Net interest margin. If I want to know the net interest margin a bank is earning.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, what is the formula of DuPont analysis?
DuPont framework, जैसे अभी हमने तीनों ROE is net income upon book value of equity. It can be written as a multiplicity of these three that we just mentioned, which is net profit margin, asset turnover ratio and equity multiplier. इन तीनों को मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो ROE आ जाएगा. तो जब हम डुपॉन्ट एनालिसिस करते हैं कभी किसी कंपनी या बैंक का, what we tend to do is that we compute ROE by this formula, and then we also compute ROE for the number of years, जितने भी years का हमारे पास डेटा है, हम ROE के लिए NPM, ATR, EM निकालते हैं for all 3 years, and then we multiply it and compute ROE. So we try to look at the cost behind the change in ROE. मतलब, let's say I have 22, 23, 24 का data, और I know ROE for these 3 years. I can compute ROE directly for these 3 years, and I can also compute ROE using a multiplicity of these three formulas, NPM, ATR और EM निकाला, right? ये तीनों सालों के लिए I found computed these ratios. I'll multiply for each year and it should match my actual return on equity. Then we'll comment that whether the change in ROE was because of the change in profitability of the company, was it because the change in the efficiency of the company, or was it because of the change in the debt levels of the company. So we try to understand the cost behind the change in ROE using DuPont analysis. So DuPont analysis कोई formula नहीं है, DuPont ratio कोई ratio नहीं है, it is just decomposition of ROE into these three ratios. Did you understand?
And BV means base value.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
BV denominator में BV means base
Book value,
of
book
equity.
value, book value.
Okay.
Book value of equity.
Okay.
The equity capital infused in the company. अगर आपको
And in-
return
you
on
know-
equity capital निकालना है, तो denominator में तो equity capital ही डालना पड़ेगा ना, कि कितना पैसा invest किया था और उस पे कितना कमाया.
Yes. और इन तीनों रेशो का मल्टीप्लिकेशन ROE के बराबर आना चाहिए.
Yes, देखो net profit आएगा ही, अगर आप सही numbers pick करोगे तो आएगा ही, क्योंकि net profit margin क्या है? Net income upon gross income. ठीक है. ATR क्या है? Gross income upon average total assets. और EM क्या है? Average total assets upon book value of equity. तो ये numbers तो same ही होंगे ना, जब मैं इन्हें multiply करूंगी तो बचेगा तो मेरा NI upon book value of equity ही. So it will automatically match ROE if the numbers are correct.
Okay, ma'am. Right.
So one more thing that we did is for banking, we can modify DuPont framework a bit, in which your net profit margin and asset yield can further be expanded into net profit margin को हम कैसे लिख सकते हैं? 1 minus net income upon interest income plus net income upon other income. Right? And asset yield को हम कैसे लिख सकते हैं? Asset yield is gross income upon average total asset. We can further write it as interest income upon average total assets plus other income upon average total assets. Remember we did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it will be really valued if you are able to further expand the ROE by expanding NPM
what
and
is
AY
APA?
in your mathematical analysis. Hanji, somebody was saying.
मैम ATA की full form क्या है?
Average total assets, बच्चे average total assets.
Okay.
DuPont तुम लोग ने accounting for manager में तो किया ही होगा. वैसे तो मैं पढ़ा चुकी हूँ
मैम
पहले।
सिर्फ ना इंट्रोडक्शन था, उसमें ना थियोरेटिकल था, प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चन नहीं थे। मुझे याद
ऐसे
है थ्योरी
कैसे हो सकता
पढ़ी
है
थी
बच्चे?
मैंने।
Yeah,
मैम
no, I
हमारा
think
इतना डिटेल में नहीं था।
yeah, we didn't do it in a detail in first semester.
हाँ
We didn't do it in detail, but we also did it in financial reporting. I mean, which is a first semester
हाँ
subject itself.
अच्छा, that I don't have that subject.
Yeah, we did it in financial
Yeah.
reporting as well.
Okay. So when we do DuPont, we are supposed to like do it numerically and understand the relevance. Anyways, ये तो 3 factor DuPont analysis है, ऐसे एक 5 factor DuPont analysis भी होता है. Generally for all the companies, but I've seen that that 3 factor DuPont is used much more than that 5 factor.
Why did you use NPM? I mean, when you were writing net profit margin, why would we write it as 1 minus NI upon II plus NI upon OI?
Because NPM is what? Net profit margin is, अच्छा मैंने गलत लिखा. Correct. Expense से करना चाहिए था. Okay. Net profit margin is net income upon gross income.
Yes.
So it will be 1 minus interest expense upon gross income. My mistake. Plus other expense, operating expense upon gross income.
On gross income, yeah.
हाँ, अभी ठीक आएगा, वो net profit margin है.
Right.
ठीक है. So this was DuPont analysis, capital adequacy norms. Okay. Capital adequacy norms तुम लोग बताओ यार क्या था?
Basically, the
Yes.
the banks are required to maintain some percentages of capital as a cushion in case the investments that they make and the loans that they give out go bad at any point of time, so that the depositors are not impacted.
Right. Any addition?
They are prescribed by Basel III.
Correct.
Basel Accords 3 after the 2008 crisis.
Right. So banks have to maintain capital against their risky assets, a percentage of capital against their risky assets. Capital would be the capital that is available to absorb losses in the day-to-day functioning of a bank. Read this first statement and tell me if it makes sense. ये कुछ नया है, बाकी सब तो आप लोगों ने पढ़ा हुआ है.
Yeah, so do you want us to explain this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you increase your balance sheet size, which is nothing but you're increasing your asset size, but these asset size you're increasing not by adding capital, but by taking more liabilities, which is like the loans. So it increases the ROE. I mean, like return on
return on
return on
equity.
asset, return on equity, yeah, exactly.
Right, because you're able to access this finance, these deposits at a cheaper rate, and you're able to make higher returns on it. If you're able to advance loan at 15% और deposit आपको 5% में मिल रहा है, तो बाकी बचा हुआ तो owners का ही बचता है. So it increases return, and hence it incentivizes them to keep increasing their balance sheet size, keep adding deposits and keep giving out loans from those deposits. But then it is risky, it makes the economy more vulnerable, or at times when there are losses in stressed year है, withdrawals है, या फिर general interest rate hike भी होता है, तो we know that it has an impact on the value of assets. So there must be enough capital on the books, enough equity, enough capital to absorb certain losses, such losses, so that the losses are not transmitted to depositors. So capital act as a safety net to depositors. It is a cushion to depositors. Hence, there are capital adequacy norms put in place, which banks must follow. Those capital adequacy norms are, first, the capital is classified. All these three forms of capital are available to absorb the losses. These two, AT1 and Tier 2 capital, is available to absorb losses only in the times of liquidation, while common equity Tier 1 capital is available to absorb losses on an ongoing basis. जब भी बैंक का लॉस होगा, ऑफ कोर्स वो इक्विटी में से ही जाके माइनस होगा. प्रॉफिट होता है तो वो भी यही जाके ऐड होता है, लॉस होगा तो भी यहीं से माइनस होगा. तो CET1 इज द कोर कैपिटल. CET1 में क्या क्या आता है? इक्विटी कैपिटल आता है, और क्या आता है? जो इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर्स ने इन्वेस्ट किया और जो इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर्स ने ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम कमाया, but it did not get distributed to them as dividend, but rather was retained back in the company and was appropriated across free reserves. Right?
Yeah.
So CET1, core capital, free reserves, AT1, perpetual form of capital. या तो perpetual debt है या perpetual preference share capital है. And preference share capital भी non-cumulative one.
Non-cumulative.
Tier 2 capital. Tier 2 capital is redeemable capital, but is available to be used up for payment of depositors, for payment of employees, for external liabilities, any other liability. Before their payment, it's the whatever is owed to them can be used to pay other liabilities. मतलब अगर लिक्विडेशन के टाइम पे, वाइंडिंग अप के टाइम पे जो भी एसेट बेच के आएगा, सबसे पहले तो उससे डिपॉजिटर्स की पेमेंट होगी. उसके बाद जितनी भी एक्सटर्नल लायबिलिटीज हैं, सिक्योर्ड लायबिलिटीज, उनकी पेमेंट होगी. एम्प्लॉइज की पेमेंट होगी, वॉट एवर इज ड्यू टू एम्प्लॉइज, जो भी आपके करंट लायबिलिटी में अवेलेबल है. सब कुछ होने के बाद टीयर 2 पे आएंगे, और टीयर 2 राइट ऑफ भी हो सकता है अगर इफ नथिंग इज लेफ्ट. बेसिकली दीज टीयर 2 कैपिटल होल्डर्स कैन नॉट सू दी कंपनी की हमारी पेमेंट क्यों नहीं हुई. अगर बैंक को लॉस हुआ है, सू दी बैंक. बैंक को लॉस हुआ है और बैंक के पास जेन्युइनली उसके पास एसेट ही नहीं बचा टू पे टीयर 2 कैपिटल होल्डर्स, देन दे कैन जस्ट राइट इट ऑफ. सो टीयर 2 कैपिटल होल्डर्स का प्रायोरिटी ऑफ पेमेंट सिर्फ 81 से पहले आता है और सबके बाद आता है. टीयर 2 कैपिटल में आपका रिडीमेबल नॉन क्यूमुलेटिव प्रेफरेंस शेयर आ गया, सबऑर्डिनेटेड डेट इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स, कन्वर्टेबल डेट इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स, रीवैल्यूएशन रिजर्व्स. सो सर्टेन प्रोविजंस एंड स्पेसिफिक रिजर्व्स लाइक इन्वेस्टमेंट फ्लक्चुएशन रिजर्व, रीवैल्यूएशन रिजर्व एंड प्रोविजन फॉर NPAs, ये सारे प्रोविजंस भी कैन बी काउंटेड इन टीयर 2 कैपिटल, बट नॉट एंटायरिटी ऑफ इट. देयर इज अ कैपिंग कि जितने भी प्रोविजंस और स्पेसिफिक रिजर्व्स हैं, when you count them in tier 2 capital, it should not exceed 1.25% of total risk weighted assets. मतलब जितने भी रिस्की एसेट है, रिस्की एसेट की जो भी वैल्यू है, there is a ceiling that 1.25% of that value can be the provisions and reserve making up tier 2 capital. ये शायद लास्ट टाइम रह गया था जब हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे. ठीक है, तो तीन चीजें हैं tier 2 में.
You're saying this is general reserve? General provisions and reserve, when we say, are we talking about general reserves here?
No, general reserves are free reserves and they get counted here, CET1. Right. All the reserves that are specific in nature, like revaluation reserve, specific reserve hai. Investment fluctuation reserve, specific reserve hai, because it is meant for absorbing losses on fluctuation in the market value of investments. Right. So hai to ye reserves hi, but they are specifically available to be used up on some specific losses. So general reserve does not form part of tier 2. Revaluation, IFR, and provision for on non-standard assets. Provision on loan loss reserve. loan loss reserve can be part of it. So all these specific reserves and specific provisions become part of it, but उन पे capping है कि 1.25% of risky assets जितनी value ही आप ले सकते हो उसकी count कर सकते हो. Revaluation में capping है कि 100% revaluation reserve में से सिर्फ 45% तक का count होगा, 55% का आप discount दोगे उस पे. मतलब जब revaluation reserve को tier 2 capital की calculation में add करोगे तो you can reserve only 45% of revaluation reserve.
So tell me
So
this
again, these are certain
revaluation
guidelines.
reserve, who has a claim on revaluation reserve? Is it the equity holders? Shareholders?
It is the equity holders.
So that means
ये सारे reserves की usage is restricted, and even after see, we believe in a going entity concept. We believe कि बैंक कभी बंद तो होगा नहीं. वो तो सिर्फ liquidation का time है कि liquidate हो रहा है और ये सब बचा हुआ है तो everything that is left is available for equity shareholders. But revaluation reserve, IFR, ये हम use नहीं कर सकते dividend की payment के लिए. We cannot use them to pay off pay equity shareholders.
I got you, but my question is that at the time of liquidation, that means if there is some money left for tier 2 players, which could be the owners of revaluation reserve, which are shareholders, they can still get some money. That's where in preference to the preference shareholders, perpetual preference shareholder, perpetual debt instruments. I'm just interpreting it the other way around.
There's कोई ओनर नहीं है आरआर का या ये सारे रिजर्व्स का. इसमें से आप सिर्फ लॉसेस को एब्जॉर्ब करा सकते हो. आप जब यहाँ से खत्म हो जाता है मतलब if anything is left for tier 2, it goes to the capital claim holders जो claim कर रहा है tier 2 capital में. For example, RNCPS हो गए या फिर ये subordinated debtors हो गए.
Okay, so I should not take revaluation reserve as claimers.
Yeah,
Anybody?
They're not.
Okay.
They're
it's
not
only the money
holders.
which is fine. Got you. So these are not the people to whom I have to pay. These is just from where the money is coming.
कर दिया, इसको zero बना दिया.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, तो ये तो हुई capital classification. Capital adequacy norms क्या कहते हैं? That your you guys tell me. Your tier 1
I think it was
CET1 ratio.
5.5%.
CET1 is 5.5.
CET was 5.5. CET plus 81 was 7%, I think.
Correct.
Risky weighted average, whatever that asset size is, risky asset size, yeah.
Risk weighted assets.
Risk weighted assets. And I think CET1 plus 81 plus tier 2 was 11.5%, if I'm not.
Right. Total.
5, 7, 11, yeah. 11.5.
Total capital is 11.5%. There was one more thing.
Oh, that buffer, I think there was one buffer, which was contingency buffer, right? No.
2.5.
The capital conservation buffer, okay, right. It was 2.5%, right.
Total core capital minus minimum CET will be termed as
capital conservation buffer.
Capital conservation buffer, and this should at least be 2.5% of total risk weighted assets. तो कहीं ना कहीं CET1 ratio हो गई 5.5 plus 2.5, 8%. कि कम से कम core CET जो core capital है वो 8% of risky assets तो होएगा ही होएगा.
So core capital is both CET1 and 81.
No. Core capital is CET1. That's it.
Okay, that's all. So why are you saying 8%? It should be 8%. That will be 5.5%.
We know कि minimum तो 5.5 है ही, और वो बोल रहे हैं कि CCB भी 2.5 होना चाहिए. तो effectively तो वो यही बोल रहे हैं कि 5.5 plus 2.5 8 तो होना ही चाहिए core capital. बाकी उससे ज्यादा जितना होगा उतना अच्छा कैपिटल कंजर्वेशन बफर होता जाएगा. बट वो कह रहे कम से कम 2.5% ऑफ रिस्क वेटेड एसेट्स तो सीसीबी होना चाहिए. सो इफेक्टिवली तो वो यही बोल रहे हैं कि मिनिमम CET1 5.5 है. अगर मैं ये वहां ले जाऊं सीसीबी मिनिमम CCB प्लस मिनिमम CET1 तो वो 8% हो गया ना.
No, I agree, but then it is straightforward. CET1 has to be minimum 8%, right? I mean, they're giving two different things. Like CET1 should be 5.5%. Instead, they can just say it should be 8%, right? Maybe I'm missing something.
So they're also saying that ये minimum 5.5 है, बाकी जितना भी है उसको आप classify करो as capital conservation buffer.
Right. I got you. I got you.
ये सब वो तब यूज कर सकते हैं when there is counter cyclical move and they need to मतलब उसके बेसिस पे कैपिटल रेस कर सकते हैं जब उनको लगता है कि इकोनॉमी में रिसेशन है, टू किक स्टार्ट द इकोनॉमी, मनी सप्लाई बढ़ाना है और उसके लिए वो रिकैपिटलाइजेशन कर रहे हैं, तो वो सीसीबी में चला जाएगा. So something like that I read in the macro prudential norms.
Sure.
Right, तो this percentage of risk weighted assets, तो बैलेंस शीट पे जितने भी एसेट्स हैं उसमें से एसेट्स such assets that are very risky will carry more weight, and the ones that are not at all risky will carry no weight, and the ones that are not very risky will carry lesser weight. We multiply those weight with the asset value so that we know the total risk weighted assets, and then we multiply that with the percentage. इस percentage से तो क्या, we divide the total risk weight assets with the tier 1 capital, tier 1 plus AT1 capital and total capital to know the bank's capital adequacy ratio and whether the bank is fulfilling the requirement or not. That would be capital adequacy norms. ठीक है? Can we move ahead?
Yep.
Asset liability management. आज ही किया है?
Yeah.
There are asset liability mismatches that mostly banks run on, even non-banking financial institutions run on. Asset liability management is to deal with that mismatch, identifying, measuring the gaps and keeping the gaps within tolerance level. Any breach in that should be taken care of by taking appropriate actions. So it is a tool for liquidity management, must be done on an ongoing basis. And asset liability committee is to be formed in every bank where they manage all kinds of risk, not just liquidity risk or interest rate risk. They even have to look for the exposure in market risk, exposure in operational risk, and need to take adequate risk, actions for any deviations in the tolerance levels. We also did gap analysis today. Can someone quickly tell me what is that?
Some difference between the asset, rate sensitive asset and rate sensitive liability.
Perfect. RSA minus RSL.
In regards
For
to
a
liquidity
specific,
and interest rate risk.
For a specific maturity bucket, the definition is complete only when you say that.
For a maturity period. Yes.
तो इसको हम गैप बोलते हैं. गैप से हमें इंटरेस्ट रेट सेंसिटिविटी पता लगती है अपनी कि इंटरेस्ट रेट बढ़ता है या घटता है, तो मेरे को मेरा NII नेट इंटरेस्ट इनकम में कितना चेंज आ सकता है, एक्सपेक्टेड है. Rate sensitive assets liabilities will be the ones that get repriced in that maturity bucket. So bank continuously computes the gap for each of the maturity bucket, then computes the cumulative gap, C gap. उसके बाद वो C gap ratio निकालता है. C gap ratio कैसे निकालता है? Cumulative gap upon total asset size of the bank. मतलब पूरी बैलेंस शीट साइज का कितना गैप है, याद आ रहा है?
Yeah.
And then they compare these percentages with their tolerance levels, with the benchmarks, and if there is, and the short periods are more relevant periods because in the long run, the changes, the interest rate keeps revising and things keep the values keep revising eventually. So जो upcoming 15 days है, upcoming 1 month है, 3 month है, we have to cater to that better when it comes to interest rate sensitivity. We also did that how we compute the change in net interest income using gap ratio or using gap levels. So multiplying gap with the change in interest rate can help us understand the change in net interest income. If it's a positive gap, how would the interest income, in which direction do you think the interest income change? Will the NII, interest income nahi, NII, net interest income बढ़ेगा या कम होगा?
If it's a positive gap, it means that assets are more than liabilities. So iska matlab they'll receive more interest. If interest rate will increase, they'll receive more interest and they'll have to.
It will go up. NII will go up.
NII will go up.
NII will go up. Okay, perfect. Okay, we also did duration gap analysis that help us understand how the interest rate change can affect the net worth of the bank. Right? We know that change in equity is actually equal to the change in liability, change in asset minus change in liability.
Yeah.
This thing. And using duration gap formula, we can find the change in asset and change in liability due to change in interest rate. क्या equation करी थी हमने? Change in E upon E will be equal to
duration A into R divided by 1 plus R, or maybe duration A minus duration L. Actually, it is minus duration A plus duration L bracket and into R upon 1 plus R.
Change in R upon 1 plus R.
Change in R.
Right. So, from examination perspective, we just need to know the gap and duration gap techniques theoretically, how they are used and why they are used. Coming to unit 5 and 6, shall I? Any doubts with unit 4?
No, I think everything is fine here.
Okay. Unit 5th and 6th talks about the various kind of financial services. We covered mutual funds, insurance services. We also did reinsurance. We did private equity. We did hedge funds, securitization. There's leasing and hire purchase, and there is factoring and forfeiting. Remember?
Definitely.
ठीक है, अभी कैसे करना है इसको? डिस्कस करें एक एक को जल्दी जल्दी? Or should I take your queries on it? If you want, I can discuss every one service one by one, or however you want to do it. Chalo, let me go on and asking certain questions out of each service. ठीक है? बहुत end to end discuss नहीं करता है. हाँ, so mutual funds. How do we calculate NAV in mutual fund? Who will tell?
So
Come on,
this
guys,
is,
net asset value.
Yeah. So this is, you know, the actual value of all the, you know, all the securities, or you know, all the invest, you know, wherever the mutual fund has invested
Value
money,
of
whether
portfolio.
it's equity or value of portfolio, plus, you know, any minus any redeemable, you know, I mean any cash to be redeemed, any securities to be redeemed, value of those divided by the total number of units.
we also tend to subtract the expenses.
Yeah.
If at all,
Do we subtract those units, which are up for redemption? I mean, like, for which are already, like, for calculating today's NAV, if somebody has already put a sell, then will that be subtracted?
We deduct. Yes, that we deduct. So I'm assuming that
And
this
cash
value
also,
of portfolio is like net value of portfolio.
Okay. Okay.
The assets that are held by the fund, right?
Okay.
और वो number of units में already registered है, जो भी final है.
Fine.
So what's the difference between regular plan, direct plan?
So in the direct plan, apart from the fund manager fee, you don't have any other intermediary,
Right.
like a broker or anything. So, the fee outflow, expense outflow is less in direct plan as compared to a regular plan.
Right. So regular plan is usually when the investor reaches out to a distributor or an intermediary to get the fund, and if I directly buy the fund unit, and that fund will be suffixed by it being a direct plan, it will generally have a lower operating expense than regular plan. क्योंकि 1% of AUM जो भी asset under management होता है that goes to the distributor as well. 1% या जो भी industry standard होता होगा that goes to the distributor as well. Can we name certain type of funds? Like, can we classify mutual funds?
Equity funds, debt fund.
Right. Flexi cap.
Yeah. So again, flexi cap, multi-assets.
Multi-cap.
Sorry. Multi-asset, small cap,
In
mid cap,
sectoral
large
funds.
cap, sectoral funds, index funds.
Index funds. Right. Well, insurance again, we get insured against any potential risk, any potential potential expense that might occur,
Loss
due to happening of an event.
Risk, yeah.
Right. Let me ask certain thing. So can insured be compensated by an insurance company in an amount exceeding to the insured's economic loss?
No, ma'am.
And which principle under which principle does this thing get covered?
Not sure. I can't
Principle
recall
of indemnity.
it.
It says that insured would not be compensated by insurance company in an amount exceeding its loss, right? Economic loss.
Yep.
So some of these health insurance companies, they actually pay a lump sum. If you are diagnosed with a critical illness like cancer, they pay a fixed amount, right? So there, I mean, like, even if you're, I mean, obviously because it's a critical illness, so, it's difficult to assess, what will be your loss. But actually, at the point of payment, you may not have incurred that much of a loss or a cost, but they pay a fixed amount. There it doesn't work this kind of a principle.
Mediclaim, maybe if I have to, if I claim for any illness, I have to file with the hospital, right? जो भी मेरा bill है, that insurance company receives, and उसी के basis पे तो वो claim approve करती है.
No, I'm talking about some specific medical insurances which actually pay a definite amount. The moment your illness is diagnosed,
Acha.
whether or not you go
16
through a
to
treatment
18.
or any expense, because
Oh,
an illness
okay,
has been
okay,
diagnosed, they'll
okay.
just pay you some 10 lakh rupees or 8 lakh rupees, whatever, is the amount
Oh,
insured,
okay.
irrespective. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I
that's what
was
I was
not
just.
cognizant of such insurance policy, but अगर ऐसा है तो I'm sure उनका प्रीमियम भी उसको रिफ्लेक्ट करता होगा.
No, definitely. Point I'm just making is that,
The
specific to this principle,
indemnity
right?
is
That,
breached here.
yes.
Okay. Okay, I was not aware of certain lump sum payment given out on certain. So बहुत सारे riders होते हैं ऐसे तो insurance claims में. But more or less, it does not make sense for insurance company to give out more than the actual compensation incurred by the insured. But if they are doing that, regardless of whatever the claim is, regardless of whatever the loss is, अगर वो कुछ पे कर रहे हैं तो वो प्रीमियम में कवर कर लेते होंगे उसको.
Obviously, yeah.
Then insurer, what else? Insurer has legal right to sue party liable for damage. So if say,
That's the principle of subrogation.
right, principle of subrogation, can you elaborate on it?
Ma'am, I cannot elaborate about it actually because I joined another call, but please carry on.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I think it is about, if you have a loss, and an insurance company has paid you an amount, and later on they can, I mean, because you were insured, that your claim was paid, but whoever is responsible for it, they can then claim on that, sue that person. Yeah.
So that legal right to sue gets transferred to the insurer, but
Right.
they can only get the amount and to an extent of what they have paid to the insured.
Right.
So let's say the insurer wins the case and the third party is proven to be guilty and is asked to pay some amount of money as a damage, and that money exceeds the money paid by the insurer to the insured, then insurer will be the insurer can receive only an amount extent to the amount paid to the insured. The rest of the amount, it goes to insured only.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that would be insurance. There are various kinds of insurance. Classification करनी है तो term insurance है, life insurance है, health insurance है, marine insurance है. Right. We also did reinsurance. What is reinsurance?
So it's something like, an insurance company further sharing with other insurance companies, whatever the liabilities are,
in exchange of a premium. So insurance
exchange of a
company
premium,
taking an insurance from another insurance company.
Right.
It could be on proportional basis. It could be on non-proportional basis. Non-proportional basis would be when there is an exceptional loss, the reinsurer can make the assets available to the insurer.
Yes.
Assets or cash, liquid assets, whatever, make available that to the insurer. Okay, hedge funds. Hedge funds. Let me ask certain questions. Who can invest in hedge funds?
HNIs, I guess, high net worth individuals.
HNIs, companies, accredited investors. And where do hedge funds invest? They can invest in any kind of asset out there, right? From anything to everything. What is their aim? What is their objective? Maximize return, minimize risk.
Right.
Are they as liquid as mutual funds? Hedge funds, are hedge funds as liquid as mutual funds?
I don't think so. Yeah.
No, they're illiquid. They would ask their investors to remain invested for a lock-in
Longer
period and
period.
only
Okay.
post which they can withdraw, and that too there are limits on the number of times they can withdraw. So definitely not as illiquid as a mutual fund. Are they as regulated as mutual funds? Of course not, because they are working for sophisticated investors, and retail investors are not exposed to hedge funds. Hence, SEBI is least bothered of what they're doing. And what else? They usually charge a percentage on the asset under management and also charge a share in the profit, right? हमने करा था 1+10 rule, 1% on the AUM and 10% on the profit made. In some cases, it might even be 2+20. अच्छा 2+20 है industry standard. Depends. I mean, we can check that, but yeah, of course, they take part in AUM and definitely in the profit. They exploit all kinds of arbitrage opportunities. They'll buy distressed assets. They'll short sell the assets in the market. They'll go for leveraged buying and whatnot. Not right. Now moving to private equity and venture capital. Can someone quickly tell the difference?
So venture capital, I understand, is when the companies are, essentially startup companies, investing in startup companies, which are in incubation stage and, setting up their business. Private equity can be, I mean, my understanding, it could be any buying a stake in any company, privately, but not necessarily it is a startup.
Right. So private equity is investing mostly in the mature companies that are that need a turnaround, that are not making profit, that are sick units, or maybe they may also go on buying public company and delist that company from the
Right.
domain, right? Public domain. What else? अगेन एक्रेडिटेड फंड हाउस ही है, एक्रेडिटेड इन्वेस्टर ही इसमें इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. यूजुअली प्राइवेट इक्विटी में कंट्रोल बहुत ज्यादा होता है क्योंकि स्टेक ज्यादा होता है एक पर्टिकुलर कंपनी में. देर आर नॉट एज डाइवर्सिफाइड एज वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट. वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट विल टेंड टू इन्वेस्ट इन 10 different startups out there and as many startups as possible as they see potential in. But for private equity investors, they limit to certain companies, and then they would have a managerial control in all of those companies. They'll try to overhaul their operations. They'll restructure the capital, restructure the management, look at how efficiency can be increased and all of that. So there is more risk diversification for venture capitalists as compared to private equity fund houses. Coming to exit strategy would be.
Ma'am, your slide is not showing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exit strategy.
So they would set out some kind of a target, I mean, on the company valuation or in terms of, how much return on investment that they will get, and at that point of time they will sell their stake.
Sell their stake, right? So they can either sell it to other fund houses out there, or sell it, make the company go for an IPO.
Right.
sell it in an IPO. They can also sell it to the management of the company, which will be known as MBO, management buyout.
Buyout. Right.
Right. So these are some of the exit strategies. Yeah. Securitization. What is securitization?
Yeah, converting illiquid assets, which are, which are loans, long-term loans, into liquid marketable securities.
Correct. It's a form of structured financing. The loans, homogeneous kind of assets are pooled together. It could be secured
Right.
loans or real estate loans or credit card loans. It could be anything, but homogeneous pool of assets bought together, which will be called a relevance portfolio. And then out of that pool of assets, on the backing on those assets, of those receivables, the securities are created by an SPV, special purpose vehicle, and all the terms and the covenants on those securities are decided by SPV. The term of maturity, rate of return, tranching is also done. Tranching, yaad hai? There are
Right.
3 tranches, or there can be more, but 3 broad ones. There
So
is
which was
senior
in
tranche,
senior
mezzanine tranche,
and equity.
and equity tranche, right? And then those
Excuse me,
securities
ma'am.
are sold to investors.
मैम इसका कोई एग्जांपल है क्या सिक्योरिटाइजेशन का?
सब बैंक्स करते हैं, मतलब everybody go on selling their loans, जो भी उनके long term illiquid loans होते हैं, every bank, many banks out there has special purpose entities who does that.
ओके समझ.
So in all these
So the
topics,
securities that are sold off under securitizations are known as, आप check भी कर सकते हो, pass through securities, pay through securities बोलते हैं उनको, PTS. If you see on a bank balance sheet a pass through or a pay through security, you can understand that this is out of this has been emanated out of some securitization process. Hanji, Atul, you were saying?
I was just asking, like in the exam, all these topics are all theoretical topics, so it will be questions would be more like, what are these process, what exactly it is, and what are the issues. That would be the kind of trend of question.
Okay. So it is always a combination of everything. There will be direct questions, there will be case-based questions, there will be numericals, thinking questions, all of that.
Right.
So yes, expect some direct questions as well. Right. So in securitization, what happens? वो तो हमने discuss कर लिया. You fill in this blank कि there is a borrower, then there is an originator of the loan,
Right.
and then there is SPV, and then there is investor. Now, how does the cash flows in this chain? Who gives to whom, and what do they give?
Yeah. So initially, the bank gives the loan to the borrower, and then
लोन दे दिया, सिक्योरिटी
yeah.
बन चुकी है, सिक्योरिटी
Right.
इन्वेस्टर को बिक चुकी है. अभी
Okay.
आगे क्या होगा?
Okay. Yeah. So borrower will make the payments, interest payments,
Right.
to the actually, he'll make the interest payment to the SPV. Whoever is the collection unit of SPV.
नहीं, he is going, administration bank ही करेगा,
Oh, yes.
originator ही
Borrower
करेगा.
will pay to originator only. Okay.
हाँ.
Oh, yeah.
Borrower has nothing to do with SPV.
Okay. Borrower will pay to the originator, and then that money will go to the SPV.
Right. And then
And
SPV
it'll be
will give returns.
based on tranching. Yeah, based on tranching, they'll pay to the investor.
Right. ठीक है. अच्छा, ये mechanism भी आ गया. We
But
also
there
did
was
some.
one concept of that also, right? Where the I think it was non-recourse basis, right?
Recourse and non-recourse.
Right, where borrowers were paying directly to the that servicing
No, borrower will always
intermediary
pay their EMIs
Okay.
or whatever installments to the
originator only.
bank originator. It's just that the default risk falls on originator to the on the bank if the borrower is not paying back, right?
Okay.
Bank has to fulfill all the obligations that are falling here. That is when the securitization is done on the recourse basis. But if it's done on non-recourse basis, the default risk is going to be borne by investor. रिकोर्स में होता है कि अगर बोरोअर ने नहीं दिया, एसपीवी के पास पैसा नहीं आया, तो दे विल आस्क बैंक टू प्रोवाइड देम विद द मनी. जो भी बोरोअर से लायबिलिटी थी बोरोअर की, बैंक हैज टू fulfill that, and bank is then going to collect it from borrower one way or the other. So recourse basis पे होता है तो bank is bearing the default risk. Sorry, बोलो.
Can we discuss lease and factoring and forfeiting quick?
Factoring and forfeiting, yeah, okay.
And lease.
चलो ठीक है. Factoring is discounting. So when a company, usually a startup company or companies who are not who would not be able to seek short-term financing at cheap interest rates to make the funds available to fund their working capital requirements, to fund their operations, they can discount the receivables, and discounting of receivables is known as factoring, right? So there is this company who is the client, and there is this factor bank, and then there is company's client. Receivable is when this client, company's client, owes to the company, and company doesn't want to wait for the client to pay back the money. Whenever they need to pay back the money, they can go to the factor bank and get it discounted, which means अगर let's say ऐसा है कि 75% 25% का है, it means कि 75% of the money factor bank will provide instantly. जैसे ही कंपनी बिल्स रिसीवेबल प्रोड्यूस करेगी फैक्टर बैंक को, तो फैक्टर बैंक 75% ऑफ द बीआर कंपनी को दे देगा, और जब क्लाइंट से पैसा आ जाएगा बैंक में, तो बाकी बचा हुआ 25% भी वो कंपनी को दे देगा आफ्टर डिडक्टिंग द फी. दिस इज हाउ फैक्टरिंग वर्क्स. So it is financing service where the factor is financing.
behalf पे पेमेंट कर देता है.
Yes. अब इसमें भी रिकोर्स नॉन रिकोर्स बेसिस पे होता है. रिकोर्स बेसिस पे है तो कंपनी इज लायबल फॉर डिफॉल्ट ऑन द साइड ऑफ क्लाइंट. अगर कंपनी के क्लाइंट ने पेमेंट नहीं की तो फैक्टर बैंक इज गोइंग टू आस्क कंपनी टू मेक गुड द पेमेंट, क्योंकि वो तो इसको पेमेंट दे चुका है और क्लाइंट से पेमेंट नहीं आई. और अगर नॉन रिकोर्स बेसिस पे है तो नॉन रिकोर्स बेसिस में फैक्टर बैंक इज लायबल. Factor bank is going to assume the default risk, and alongside financing there are many other functions a factor bank does. Financing तो वो कर ही रहा है, but apart from financing, factor bank is also collection, is also doing the collection part, is also administrating and coordinating with the customers, clients, customers, customer, clients, customer, जो भी है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का काम. देन क्रेडिट एनालिसिस कर रहा है, हु इज जो भी डेटर्स है कंपनी के, उसमें से कौन सा डेटर ज्यादा क्रेडिट वर्दी है, कौन सा ज्यादा क्रेडिट वर्दी नहीं है, किसकी पेमेंट हिस्ट्री कैसी है, एंड कलेक्शन एनालिसिस कर रहा है. ऑल ऑफ दैट इज बीइंग टेकन अप बाय द फैक्टर बैंक. तो ये तो हुआ फैक्टरिंग. डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड?
Yes, ma'am.
Coming to forfeiting.
So they also do some accounting, book accounting for them, something like that also. I mean, the factor bank on behalf of the client?
I don't know. I'm not sure of it. मतलब accounting तो of course in-house ही होगी. वो bank would not be accounting on their behalf, but I'm not sure. Accounting
And I don't know
statements
from
में
where I'm
record तो
getting
होता ही
that.
होगा.
Probably somewhere it came up, so I don't know where it came up, but somewhere I was having that, recalling that, but that's okay. I mean, I just thought I'll check. Yeah.
Coming to forfeiting. So factoring में एक और ब्रांच होती है इंटरनेशनल फैक्टरिंग. इंटरनेशनल फैक्टरिंग मतलब ये हो गया when you are discounting export bills. मतलब if there is an exporter, there is an importer, there is an exporter bank, exporter factor, and there is an importer bank, which is guaranteeing the payment of importer. Yeah, which is maintaining accounts on behalf of importer. Could be anything. So international factoring में क्या होगा? This exporter bank, the importer once goods have been received, purchase deed हो गई, goods receive हो गए, उसके बाद वो bill draw करेगा in name of exporter, and this bill can be discounted by the exporter bank. Exporter can get this bill discounted from its own factor bank, and that will be termed as international factoring क्योंकि यहाँ पे international payment is being discounted. उसके बाद exporter bank is going to coordinate with the importer bank as and when the bill comes due, they are going to send the reminder, or importer is going to pay off, maintain a balance with the importer bank, and importer bank is going to make the payment to the exporter bank. So ये तो international factoring हुई. The only difference between the factoring we did, domestic factoring and international factoring is कि यहाँ पे international payment है. Importer exporter का है, वो purchase deed है, और ship agreement भी कुछ जो भी relevant documents होते हैं that validates that the goods have been shipped and terms of purchase have been fulfilled, terms of sale have been fulfilled, all of that documents get additionally added. Now the difference between international factoring and forfeiting is also discounting international bills. दोनों चीजें same है, but the main difference, can somebody point out the main difference between international factoring and forfeiting?
So there are 4 parties here, right? Now the importer bank as well as exporter bank. There was only one factor which was involved here. There are 4 parties involved.
So forfeiting is 100% more often than not 100% discounting होता है. मतलब इसमें ऐसा नहीं है कि 3/4 पहले जाएगा फिर 1/4 बाद में जाएगा जब पेमेंट रिसीव होगी. Forfeiting is purely factoring. Forfeiters do not indulge themselves in doing other tasks for the client. इनका कोई लॉन्ग टर्म रिलेशनशिप नहीं होता है क्लाइंट के साथ कि वो उनकी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन भी करेंगे या फिर उनकी बुक्स मेंटेन करेंगे, क्रेडिट एनालिसिस करेंगे. नथिंग. दे आर ओनली फाइनेंसिंग, एंड फॉर दैट फाइनेंसिंग दे आर चार्जिंग अ फी. सबसे मेन डिफरेंस तो मेरे अकॉर्डिंग यही है that there is pure financing and against which a fee is charged. And yes, there is exporter forfeiter, there is importer, and importer का होता है able bank.
Right.
So everything else remains same. It's just that now this able bank is endorsing importer. The credit worthiness of able bank matters to the forfeiter and not that of importer. Importer may default, may not default. Forfeiter के पास जो liability है वो able bank की होती है. Able bank have to make this payment good to the forfeiter. So this is forfeiting. Who asked? Did you understand?
I don't know, in the book, I was just checking in the book, it says forfeiting has advantages, and one of the advantages says that simplified funding, it's a straightforward financing method that does not require collateral or a credit check. As a result, it may be appealing choice for SMEs that do not have access to traditional financing. So there is no collateral required. Why would it say that? Because I think this bill of exchange is still required, right?
But bill of exchange is not a collateral, right? It is just a document saying that importer owes to exporter. Nothing else. Collateral तो हुआ कि अगर कल को नहीं payment आई तो you have this asset and you can have a charge on this asset, claim on this asset, sell
But
it
that
and recover.
letter of credit or any such thing, which they issue, that won't that be classified as a collateral? Because otherwise, why would a forfeiter discount that bill? I mean, he will discount when he knows that there is a guaranteed payment which would come from the able bank.
From an international bank.
Yeah.
There is a guarantee from an international bank, hence they don't need and they would not need a collateral.
Okay, so I was talking about that guarantee itself. That wouldn't be called a collateral. Okay.
Context में इन्होंने ये लिखा है, मेरे को जो समझ आ रहा है, that is in comparison to obtaining a credit where small medium enterprises उनके लिए credit obtain करना is more expensive than getting it financed via factoring or forfeiting. वो context मुझे यही लग रहा है. Because when you seek credit, you have to, of course, there is a collateral नहीं तो कुछ personal asset पे claim होता है. All of that.
Understood.
ठीक है, तो ये हो गया factoring, forfeiting. Any doubt for this topic? Okay, let's talk about the last one. Leasing and hire purchase. I believe this is also must be familiar to you. Leasing is when you want to use asset but do not want to own the asset, can't buy the asset because of whatever reasons, the price is high, or I mean, it does not make sense for you to seek a loan for that asset because you know that you may want to replace the asset soon. So you can use the asset for rental payments known as lease rentals. Maintenance, repair, all of that is with the leasing company. You just need to pay off the rentals and utilize the asset. Even the depreciation on the asset can only be charged by the leasing company. So maintenance, they can be different variety of arrangements out there, but more generally speaking, the ownership of the asset remains with the leasing company, and hence the repair, maintenance, and the depreciation on asset is charged by the leasing company on their income statement. Asset never appears on the books of lessee.
So actually, we get these two types of leases, in financial reporting. One is the operative lease and other is the financial lease. What we were told that in financial lease, the asset eventually gets transferred to the lessee. Operating lease, it will remain with the leaser.
Right, true. Financial lease is actually eventually the asset will be owned by the lessee. It is also financing the lessee, leasee जो भी. Right. Operating lease is what I am explaining यहाँ पे.
Exactly,
mostly the ownership remains with the leasing company, and upgradation is very easy. You can get it replaced. कोई भी damage है तो the leasing company can replace it or can get it repaired, whatever. Financial lease में it is mostly that eventually the ownership is also transferred to the lessee. But then how is it different from hire purchase?
Same question.
Hire purchase is also like a credit arrangement. where eventually the company that is going for hire purchase will own the asset. It is also a credit arrangement.
So I don't know. I mean, I think so. Maybe there is some difference from a duration perspective, because hire purchase are, like it's mentioned, it's a short-term duration.
Not sure. देखना पड़ेगा ये. Hire purchase is also what you explained for financial lease. It is a creditor buying over a specific period of time. Main difference, अगर buy ही करना है asset in the long run, then why not buy now on credit terms? उसपे main difference ये आ जाता है कि अभी buy ना करके eventually installments add up to a value that they can buy it. Again, it is on the customer whether they want to buy it or not. But तब तक वो इतने payments दे चुके होते हैं that they have a choice to buy the asset in their name, get the asset transferred in their name. इसमें depreciation till the time asset is owned by the company, hire purchase company, the company that is providing this hire purchase service. Depreciation is charged by them. Repair maintenance charged. Repair maintenance is with the. उसमें भी कोई difference हो सकता है financial lease और hire purchase में.
Yeah,
that who is looking
lease,
after the asset.
Yeah, financial lease में the maintenance is done by the lessee.
By the lessee, okay.
Yeah.
यहाँ का भी मुझे तो यही पता है that lessee does it. But again, there can be various ways an arrangement can be seeked and the covenants can be changed. But mostly a company, instead of buying the asset on credit terms and will go for a hire purchase agreement, probably because that company falls in a lower tax bracket than the bank, and bank is able to save more on taxes by charging depreciation than the company itself. So they can pass on some benefit to the company. That's what I remember.
Right.
More or less.
In fact, I don't know about hire purchase, but in financial lease, even the lessee can claim, on that rental amount, I mean the lease amount, they can claim some tax because I think as a business expense, it is tax deductible.
Lease rental to interest income statement में as expense show होगा ही. Now the difference comes the amount of depreciation and the lease rental they happen to pay.
Agreed.
या तो अगर एसेट खुद का है तो डेप्रिसिएशन चार्ज होगा, अगर एसेट लीज पे लिया है तो लीज रेंटल चार्ज होगा, कुछ ना कुछ तो डेफिनेटली चार्ज होगा. बट इफ एसेट इज ह्यूज इन वैल्यू और डेप्रिसिएशन की वैल्यू ज्यादा है, तो जो ज्यादा बड़े टैक्स ब्रैकेट में फॉल करती है कंपनी, उसको टैक्स सेविंग ज्यादा होगी, एंड देन दे कैन डिवाइड द बेनिफिट.
In fact, we were told that, for a financial lease, even the lessee can claim depreciation because eventually the asset will be on his book.
Probably that's the difference I can see or I have come across. बहुत ज़्यादा depth में मैंने भी इसका study नहीं किया. But I believe hire purchase में option lies with the customer till the end of the agreement whether they wish to get the asset transferred in their own name or not. I believe financial lease में it is a given.
It's compulsory. Yeah, it's compulsory. It has to be done.
Or in that case, that means it is more like financing the asset.
True.
Financial lease is more like financing,
but you
asset,
have
right?
better. It is financing, but then you can. There are more benefits to it, in terms of depreciation claims.
Right. I would like to close the discussion here.
Yeah. I think we have overshot the time as well.
Yes.
One quick one only. This pass-through securities and pay-through securities. What is the fundamental difference between the two? I will.
1 second. Let me recall. So pass-through security, everything that is coming from the borrower to the bank is passed on to the investor. While pay-through securities, there is a prescribed return that goes to the so याद है प्रीपेमेंट वाला एग्जांपल किया था हमने कि अगर बोरोअर ने प्रीपेमेंट कर दी तो वो सारी की सारी प्रीपेमेंट जाएगी इन्वेस्टर को, लेकिन वहां पे जितना जाना है उतना ही जाएगा और जो रिमेनिंग है वो एक बैलेंस में जाता है, एक अकाउंट में जाता है, और जिस टाइम पे डेफिसिट होता है वहां से इट केटर्स टू द डेफिसिट. Could you recall?
No, I mean, I am recalling that we had that conversation, but not completely. Maybe I'll refer to the
याद नहीं है.
recording.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll record it.
So
I'll check the
let
recording.
me मेरे को याद आ गया एग्जांपल. कुछ ऐसा था कि अगर इन्वेस्टर इज गोइंग टू रिसीव 100 in प्रिंसिपल एंड 50 in इंटरेस्ट, 150 देना था बोरोअर को, बट बैंक रिसीव 200 क्योंकि उसने 50 आगे की पेमेंट अभी कर दी, 200 रिसीव हो गया. तो इस पास थ्रू सिक्योरिटी में तो ये पूरा का पूरा 200 इन्वेस्टर को प्रोराटा बेसिस पे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो जाएगा. ये पास थ्रू सिक्योरिटी है. लेकिन इन पे थ्रू सिक्योरिटी 200 आया, 200 में से 50 will go into some account, some kind of balance account, while 150 that was meant to be paid off to the investors in form of returns would be paid. ये 50 तब यूज होगा जब कोई डेफिसिट होगा कि यहाँ से नहीं आया तो यहाँ से दिया.
Fine. So there is no prepayment that is done to the investors. Okay.
No, prepayment can be exercised by the borrower. वो तो borrower का right है. लेकिन हाँ, उनको इन्वेस्टर को नहीं मिल रही. करेक्ट, इन्वेस्टर को नहीं मिल रही.
Okay.
चलो, I'll close it.
Yeah.
All the very best for your exams.
So thanks a lot, and I really enjoyed all these sessions. They were very in-depth and very, I mean, all these areas were, sort of eye-openers for me at least.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, all the very best. Now though you are passing out. So hope to meet you in the campus someday.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Okay, give your exams and then we'll try to connect. We should definitely.
So, ma'am, you're full-time faculty in SOL, or you're part of visiting faculty here?
No. I've now joined as a full-time faculty to SOL.
Full-time faculty. Okay. So I was just wondering, last 3 semesters we didn't had any subject from you.
So last semester I was there with SOL since last semester, but I wanted to take financial derivatives, international finance. Those are my core subjects. MBFS is something that I'm teaching for the very first time. So, but since they were being taken up by the faculties,
sir. Yeah. Sir was taking
so
that,
it didn't make sense for me to get into it. But yes, now so I'll be teaching other batches. Good that I got an opportunity to.
Before coming to SOL, you were into what?
So I was a full-time lecturer in one of the Delhi University regular colleges. I
see. Okay.
I've been in DU as a full-time faculty since 2019. So I'm completing 5 years.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your long class today.
Yes. Okay. Bye.